All last week, Kurt, we hit it really hard. Zelensky was coming to town. I made sure I loaded the doc with a lot of stories about Zelensky because I still am trying to figure out what we need to do here, right? I played this War Machine video from my friend who spent a lot of time on it, and he had Eisenhower in the beginning and at the end. And at the very end of the clip, Eisenhower said, only a very well-informed citizenry, right, population of people can help fight back against this military-industrial complex. I'm still kind of wondering and thinking what we have to do at this point because I think it's just getting out of line. I mean, there's a lot of people who say that the people who are running this country are satanic in a murder-death cult. I don't know if you want to say they're satanic, but they are crazy.
Well, there was that one, 20-year-long Satan devil sacrifice we did in the Middle East.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. And they keep pushing us into these wars. They keep on thrusting us into these wars. And they're saying, well, it wasn't Americans that died. It was Ukrainians. We'll get into that.
Hey, I want Trump to make Satan great again.
Sorry. Here's from antiwar.com, our friend Dave DeCamp over there. Republicans for Ukraine ad says Ukraine war is good because it weakens Russia.
Does it?
And the ad campaign was launched by Defending Democracy Together, a group led by neoconservative Bill Kristol,
a.k.a. the rightest man about the invasion of Iraq.
Yeah, I know, right? He was wrong about everything. And if you haven't seen the Scott Horton, Bill Kristol debate, guys, go watch it. Bill Kristol is sweating the whole time as Scott Horton's just tearing up apart, sipping on a Dr. Pepper.
How is he and also David Frum, how do they just pop up like on Bill Maher still
to this day? To this day. No matter how wrong they got it. The guy should be locked up for good, still on. Let's read this here. A new group formed to rally the GOP support for Ukraine released an ad this weekend that said U.S. spending on the war in Ukraine is good for the U.S. because it weakens Russia. The ad was made by Republicans for Ukraine, a campaign launched by Defending Democracy Together, an organization led by neoconservative Bing, 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 Bill Kristol.
How do neocons still exist and show their faces?
Well, now they're in the form of Democrats. Because, let me tell you something. Last time Zelensky came a year ago, and this is with the video we did, the War Machine, we based it around there, he was able to come to Congress and speak. Who controlled Congress there? Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats. This time he came, he didn't speak at Congress, Kurt. You know why? Because Kevin McCarthy and the Republicans controlled it, and Kevin McCarthy wouldn't dare allow him to speak while he has an uprising of people like Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Chip Roy.
That was really stupid.
He's like, there's no chance Zelensky's going to speak this time, and that's the Republicans.
Craig,
the Republicans.
If he had let Zelensky speak, Matt Gaetz and him wouldn't have fought because they would be in awe of the majesty of Zelensky and the struggle of the Ukrainian people. Sean Penn is right.
Well, let's see. Listen to this. The effort comes as a support for arming Ukraine and the waning among GOP voters, with a recent CNN poll finding 71% of Republicans were against Congress authorizing more Ukraine aid.
What happened to Republic?
Listen,
what happened to them? They used to give
be all on for war.
They used to go along with any of the most dipshit wars you could throw at them.
Look,
what happened?
I don't know. Well, listen. I think that there is this kind of like libertarian mentality from some of the Republicans who came in there who are sick and tired of seeing us waste money and resources fighting other wars for other people rather than taking care of the problems we have here at home.
And I'm sick of them kissing Russia's ass.
Well, listen to this video over here because this is kind of genius because they took Nikki Haley's game plan of talking about we got to defeat Russia because it's tied to China. Watch
slick.
this. Well, it's
she's
genius.
In her prime.
Maybe she got it from Bill Kristol.
When America arms Ukraine, we get a lot for a little. Putin is an enemy of America. We've used 5% of our defense budget to arm...
Everything so far, right? I'll play it again. I'm stuck in a rewind. The 5%. Who's an enemy? Here we go.
When America arms Ukraine, we get a lot for a little. Putin is an enemy of America. We've used 5% of our defense budget to arm Ukraine, and with it, they've destroyed 50% of Putin's army.
Why?
We've done all this by sending weapons from storage, not our troops. The more Ukraine weakens Russia, the more it also weakens Russia's closest ally, China. America needs to stand strong against our enemies. That's why Republicans in Congress must continue to support Ukraine.
Who made this?
Republicans for Ukraine. That's the Bill Kristol
Is that
group.
Nikki? Oh, Bill. That's
It's Bill Kristol's group, but I think
I'm gonna
Nikki
call him
Haley's on the
Crystal
same.
Bill, like Crystal Ball. Crystal Bill.
Look, can I tell you something, Kurt? They should get an A for at least knowing their audience, understanding that Russia is tied to China, like that. You know what I'm saying? They're getting that group.
The biggest shit brains in the world.
It's only 5% of the defense spending, Kurt. And when we do some more analyzation, it's only 3.5%.
Okay, do you know how,
buddy?
Do you know how like demented and how low to even refer to any places, other places, as shithole after that ad was made? Okay, like the most positive thing you could say about it, it's still one of the shitty. We're only using 5% of our budget to get, like. There's nothing good in that.
Yeah. Well, it's only 5% of our budget. We still have 95%
We use
left.
our hand-me-down weapons.
Yes, well, that's another thing. We're only getting over the old weapons we need to get rid of anyways. So what's the big
We
deal?
might as well make sure they're used on people we don't like.
And by the way, you Republicans out there, we know you hate China.
You want to just
well,
waste
this is
a lot of
going
weapons?
attacking Russia is attacking China.
You want to just not waste them, the weapons? There's a lot of like starving kids in Africa would love those weapons.
Kurt, I have more. The more Ukrainian weakens Russia, the more that Ukraine, weakens Russia, the more it also weakens Russia's closest ally. Dun, 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 dun. China. America needs to stand strong against our enemies. That's why Republicans in Congress must continue to support Ukraine, the ad says. Look, they understand it's getting weak, that there's Republicans there that said, don't you dare let Zelensky speak. You're not getting your budget until we stop arming Ukraine. Enough is enough. Why are we doing this? We have problems at home. These are conservatives, right? These are populist right people speaking. None of the Democrats, not your AOCs, not your Rashida Tlaib's, not your Ayanna Presley's, not your Jamal Bowman's, not for sure. None of them are speaking up. You have Matt Gaetz speaking up, being anti-war above everybody.
Look, by the way, if you support just the concept of a proxy war to weaken, you really are like an underhanded scumbag.
What do you mean?
Just in terms of thinking that that's a cool.
Kurt, we're not spending one American life. There's not one American life that's being spared. But
no, I know. But the very idea that you would do some that's the kind of paranoid stuff they said Russia was doing. They're using their proxy memes to make us not vote for Hillary.
I know, right? And that Bernie Sanders Jesus meme.
Yeah, you're bragging about some scumbag underhand. At best, it's the most scumbag underhanded plan you've ever bragged about. At best.
Yeah.
Okay? Never mind, like, it's not going how you're saying it's going.
Yeah. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin used similar language in the early days of the war, saying one of the U.S. goals in Ukraine was to weaken Russia, leaving no doubt the conflict is a proxy war. Colin Rugg, who's been doing some great work, says, Justin, the United States will pay for Ukrainian salaries, but furlough American citizens in the impending government shutdown. I'm going to say that one more time. The United States will pay for Ukrainian salaries out of your tax dollars, but American citizens in the impending government shutdown will get a furlough. Your government hates you and loves war. If Congress fails to pass a spending plan, the U.S. government will shut down at the end of the month, but will continue to fund the salaries in the Ukraine, meaning the politicians, meaning their crisis workers.
And word gets out. Somehow word gets out this time that we're not paying you, but we are paying Ukraine.
And this is according to Newsweek. American employees, they're going to get a furlough, okay? Your tax dollars will be used to fund Ukrainian salaries while American citizens are forced to wait for their pay while the government remains closed.
Oh, and also, Canada just saluted a Nazi.
We'll get to that. We're going to have our guest on really soon, too, as well. Hopefully, Mr. John Leake is paying attention to this because we'll let him talk about this. Take a look. This is your president. This is your commander-in-chief with Zelensky this week as he was in town.
Are you confident Congress will provide the funding for Ukraine? Mr. Zelensky, aren't you concerned that you're losing Poland over the Ukraine? Sir, that you're losing a friend? Aren't you concerned that you're losing Poland as a friend? Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
I think it's only a matter of time before Zelensky is out
I mean, don't wear all green if you have little weird elf ears.
Well, no. That is true, but you got to make him look like the
Look
soldier.
at that. The elf on the shelf over
the
here.
fake soldier who's an actor. He's got to look the part. And there you go. And I only want to put this in really. Zelensky asked Congress for more Ukraine aid as war continues. Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell. The batteries are on right now, but this picture was taken this weekend. They also had a little joint session coming on with Republicans, whatnot, the Republicans who are all signed up for this proxy war, who want to continue to fund it. Listen to this. This is Michael McCall, Republican from Texas, as he speaks to reporters after this little inside meeting. Look at these, listen to these war hawks over here. They don't care. They'll fund this war. They don't mind.
What was the president's message?
Right here, sir.
Here we go. That he's winning.
Here you go, Chairman.
That he's winning, but that
Why?
I asked, what do you need? What's your plan for victory? What do you need? Two things in particular: air cover, that would be F-16s, and the ATACMS. He needs the longer-range artillery to hit Crimea, where the Iranian drones are coming out of. And he doesn't have that. Right now, his troops are going in with no air cover. They have to take the mines by hand at nighttime. We wouldn't send our troops into that situation. So,
But they're not our troops, you idiot. This is Ukraine against Russia, a nuclear power. You know, the guys who have the other guys who have the most nuclear weapons other than us?
Well,
These guys.
the caution becomes cowardice at a certain point.
Craig, Sean Penn, here we go.
we need to give them everything they need. If this administration won't give it to them, then I submitted that we write it in our appropriations bill. We write the,
Tell me, get
the
everything they
weapons
need out
that
of
he
these
asked
nuts.
for that this administration won't give. We write that in our appropriations bill. And I think the Democrats at the table, whether it be Steny Hoyer to Nancy Pelosi to the whip and Chairman Mr. Meeks, we all agree.
Now, did he say anything about the aid package, the $24 billion aid package, and what it would mean for Ukraine?
Of course. I mean, they need it, and they're going to get it. I said, you know, the majority support this. I know there's some dissension on both sides, but I said a war of attrition is not going to win this. And that's what Putin wants, because he wants to break the will of the American people and the Europeans. We can't afford a war of attrition. We need a plan for victory, and we need to do it soon.
Nobody wants to remember and talk about what happened in 2014 when Ukraine exists to be Ukraine anymore, because we had a proxy war, right? We brought in Victoria Nuland, and we brought in our own government. So it didn't become the Ukraine government anymore. It became the West government.
Okay,
and then we started immediately arming Nazis who started bombing people in the Donbass. We created this situation, and now we want to forget and act like that's just not a thing. And then it's about Putin expanding the old Soviet Union. Sorry.
But let's pretend that's not what happened, okay? Russia decided, in the words of the great Kamala Harris, to invade a smaller country.
Yeah.
And Russia decided to invade. By those standards, it's still a wash.
Yeah. So what do they got to do? They got to throw every single piece of propaganda with you. I think Jimmy said in this thing with Russell Brand that the number one liar to the people is the government. Number two is the mainstream media, because the mainstream media goes hand in hand with the government. They work together, right, to make sure that you are the most propagandized people on the planet. That little ad that was saying it's destroyed 50% of Russia's military is a lie. There are people in Congress out there who are repeating this bullshit that since the counteroffensive has taken place, that Zelensky is taking back more areas than the Russians have grabbed since the war began. And we saw it with Scott Ritter, the little blue. There was hardly anything.
Never mind Scott Ritter. Sean Penn debunked that himself.
Well, some other players.
He said, stop putting spin on it and get us involved in a much bigger war.
And Sean Penn was also last week on 60 Minutes, right? They did the whole thing. They did the whole story. This week on 60 Minutes, remember we've been showing you those pictures of the three senators that have been hanging out in Kiev, or Kyiv for that matter.
I call it Kev.
Kev. Well, they got him in Kev this week. Watch this part as they praise Mr. McCain, Warhawk, and then these three donkey senators that are there.
In total, America's pumped nearly $25 billion of non-military aid into Ukraine's economy since the invasion began. And you can see it working at the bustling farmers market on John McCain Street in central Kyiv.
People of Ukraine, this is your moment.
The late senator is revered in Ukraine because he pushed the US government to start sending arms to the country after Russia first invaded back in 2014. While in Kiev, we learned that 3 of McCain's former colleagues were also in town. Democratic Senators Elizabeth Warren and Richard Blumenthal, and Republican Senator Lindsey Graham.
They're not the same.
They don't normally agree on much. Together, though, they're some of the staunchest supporters of US funding for Ukraine's resistance.
They're on track to break the Russian army. And the only way they could possibly lose is if we pull the plug on them.
The wreckage of Russia's war machine was on display for Ukraine's Independence Day celebrations, even as almost a fifth of the country remains under occupation.
People ask me, is it worth it? Here's what we've gotten for our investment. We haven't lost one soldier.
That's like getting
we reduced
something.
the combat power of the Russian army by 50%.
Lie.
Not one of us has died in that endeavor. This is a great deal for America.
You've previously said that it's the best money we've ever spent. That's still true?
Since we helped Churchill stand up to the Nazis.
Now we just support the Nazis. The greatest deal since Churchill defeated the Nazis, right? Now we just support the Nazis.
Wait.
Lie
hold
after
on.
lie
Now, Craig,
after lie, Kurt.
I don't want to be conspiratorial, but is this proof we didn't go to the moon?
I don't know. This might be
Because he just admitted this is the best
since
use of our
Churchill.
money? What?
Since Churchill defeated the Nazis, the best deal we've had.
We have to have confidence that the dollars we're spending are actually being spent in defense of the nation.
They're not. The same network that did a story that told you that 80% of the weaponry that we're sending there is not even making it to the front line is now doing a story saying, okay, we're here to make sure that the weaponry we're sending is making it to the front line.
Elizabeth Warren is like, we can be sure this weaponry is getting there. Or
Elizabeth Warren, by the way.
I'm not a Cherokee medicine woman.
Let's listen one more time. We'll bring in our guest. Elizabeth Warren.
We have to have confidence that the dollars we're spending are actually being spent in defense of the nation. All of that is important. But that's why we're here.
The senators and other US officials told us there have been no substantiated cases of American weapons being diverted.
Yes, there have been. The same network that you're doing the story, they did a whole story on it, and they had people admitting it. That the Ukrainian got so mad that they had to call 60 Minutes and tell them to retract the story. Because they were so upset by and aggravated of it.
And I remember the guy on it was like, I don't care. He goes, does it bother you that 70% of the weapons aren't going?
Yeah.
He goes, no. So there you have it.
Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Tampa, Boca Raton, Orlando, Dallas, Houston, San Diego, Bloomington, Illinois, Indianapolis, and Levittown, New York. Wow, that's a lot of dates. See you there.